Your Excellency, the Minister, the clerk to the committee, and your members, your team, and of course the permanent secretary of the ministry and your team. The press. Let me still stand on the existing protocol as duly established, because our trip today, which is first of its kind since this committee was inaugurated, and of course the office of the minister. I wish to express the parliamentary greetings from the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, and the entire leadership of the House of Representatives. We are the House Committee on National Planning and Economic Development, one of the most outstanding committees constituted as a standing committee of the House of Representatives, and the wisdom of the Speaker by carefully selecting these array of members, professionals in their respective fields, people ever before coming to the House. Proudly, I, Right Honorable Dr. Ibrahim Ayokunle Isiaka, I've always been counting my blessings with smile, not only for finding myself amongst the midst of these men of timber and caliber, including the women among us. Further to that, building another relationship with Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister, the man whom I've always been referring to, having a multitasking. I've always been calling you a technopoly, as technocrat politician, without mincing any words. His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has not made any mistake. And if by any mistake, in choosing you as Minister for Budget and Planning, is that he has not and will never not made any mistake at all to have chosen you as the minister driving the budget and budgetary process, money bill of the entire nation. As part of our legislative agenda on harmonious relationships with the National Assembly and the executive, myself and my distinguished honorable colleagues, we are here to further synergize with your ministry in line with the current administration's 8 points agenda. The core fulcrum of the committee's interface shall be to strengthen our national budgetary system, having in mind that an effective national budget system plays a critical role in driving economic growth. It should be transparent, aligned with the long-term economic goals. It should be flexible, fiscally disciplined, and prioritize social equity. By incorporating these key elements, the government is able to create a conducive environment for economic development, to attract investment and improve the overall well-being of its citizens. Therefore, it is imperative for we as policymakers and you and your team as the executive arm of the government to design and implement a national budget system that will continue to foster economic growth and prosperity. Distinguished Honorable Minister, in light of the foregoings, and having carefully at our last meeting, together with my colleagues, discussed about the budget process and money bills and our work plan, the work plan of the committee, I hereby, Your Excellency, present to you a proposal from the House Committee on National Planning and Economic Development for your due scrutiny. We are not forcing it on you. Consideration, and which you are going to amend or adjust where necessary, or discard if it's not in line with what is in sync with your ministries and your team thinking. But we are so sure you are going to find this very interesting, and we are hoping that in a few days to come, we shall be interfacing with your team to have a final touch on this. I hereby present to you on behalf of the committee.
I most respectfully, on behalf of all of us on this side, the permanent secretary, directors, my aides, members of the ministry, welcome you to the ministry and thank all the media and the club and staff of the committee for this encouraging visit to our ministry. And thank you for the message, and we'll look at it. And I've earlier appreciated all the support we have received from the committee. One of the beauty of the choice we made about democracy is that it is based on respect for institutions. Oversight is a very, very important and essential ingredient of democracy, if only to draw attention to the work that we all do and where necessary to generate input in making it better. The National Planning and Economic Development function that in the wisdom of the House of Representatives you are mandated to lead is very, very important for national development, especially in a federal setting. I remember a special assistant to Dr. Isiaka in 1993 when the National Planning Commission Act was proposed, because Dr. Isiaka spent most of his World Bank career in Asia. In Asia, countries that have utilized national planning to the fullest. So because of that experience, the National Planning Commission Act was created. And part of the wisdom came from the experience of India, which is a federal state like Nigeria, that in a federal state, in a democracy, particularly looking forward to democracy, then it is appreciated that if you don't have a mechanism for generating an irreducible minimum consensus and keeping to it, you will continue to struggle with development issues. And that is why when the ministry was moved from commission to a ministry, many observers in the polity have their doubt. And it has an immediate impact in the sense that many of the staff members of the commission left for elsewhere in the service. So, not surprisingly, as part of the renewed hope agenda, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had instructed, and the Attorney General of the Federation is currently reviewing a new legislation that will ensure that both the national planning and the budget function are made better by a new legislation that will be brought to the National Assembly. And I will share that with the chairman. And equally, to appreciate that we have been instructed by Mr. President to restore the sanctity of a plan-based budget. Because without a plan, you'll continue to wobble. And the world, everyone you are dealing with want to appreciate whether you have a strategy and whether you are confident in your own strategy. Challenges can come from time to time, implementational challenges, challenges that are caused by other external and domestic factors. But the clarity is whether we have the strategy or not. And it's very important to appreciate this point so that we, even when challenged, we keep to the strategy. We want to achieve a higher rate of growth that is all inclusive. That's a very clear strategy. But that does not mean along the way this strategy will not confront some occasional challenges. Like the moment we are in now, our strategy to reform the macroeconomic polity, to ensure that we generate more revenue, to have a foreign exchange market that is rule based and can generate investments and investor confidence is now faced with some volatility that we are dealing with. But I'm proud to say we are very clear about how to handle, and we have a line of sight as how to. Of course, in the immediate, we have to respond more to support vulnerable populations and those who are otherwise affected by. But our strategy is very, very clear, and we appreciate that the National Assembly fully supports all the bold and commendable measures that have been taken, even while calling for more intervention to ensure that the constituents who are affected by the reform effort are supported until we tide over the storm, which I believe we will soon do. Again, like I earlier started by saying, we chose democracy. Democracy has its own pitfalls, or rather has its own challenges. But in the last 8 months, we have demonstrated together, the executive and the National Assembly, that democracy is not antagonism. Democracy is cooperative federalism, where both sit together, act together, and do things for the interest of the nation. We presented a budget in a short time, and National Assembly, in its own wisdom, considered the budget and even decided to increase it based on their own wisdom and challenges that appears. And Mr. President appreciated that. That is democracy at work. We do not have all the answers. It's not a monologue. It's a dialogue. And we demonstrated to the world that we are able to cooperate and get our priorities right. And I think that is a very, very commendable show of democracy in action. And I'm sure that will encourage other countries, particularly countries that are in our neighborhood. We are in the heavy lifting phase. We have brought a number of reforms that are working together and are acting together, both positively and negatively. Today, the exchange rate is where it is, and the volatility is settling, but we still hope that it will settle at a rate where it will not affect variables negatively. But we appreciate that it's a turbulent moment, but we are confident we will solve it. I'm glad that the committee chairman made mention of the budget, which I said our objective is to stick to a plan-based budget. And I remember answering a journalist's question ahead of the budget passage, that why did we submit a proposal with 750 naira exchange rate? And I said to the journalist that because we don't use spot rate to determine budget, because it can change, not even knowing that the monetary authorities will take the action that they took, which have affected budget. But budget, and that is the wisdom of Mr. President, budget is the shortest term plan. We should never look at budget, the yearly budget, in isolation. I think part of what President Aswaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu want to change, he has done that in Lagos, is that a budget must always derive from a plan. And that is where the committee, in my humble view, can be more assertive. If the plan we have agreed with as a nation is not working well, let's change it. But as long as we adopt it, and that is the plan, let it drive all other activities. Like I said, particularly in a federation, because our Agenda 2050, which is our perspective plan, is drawn by both the federal subnationals and the private sector, civil society organizations. So it's like the consensus of all. And where there is a consensus that has been reached by all, they reflect in. Otherwise, it gives room for suspicion, it gives room for other parts of the country or different parts of the country saying we are not carrying along or the other, because something we agreed to do jointly maybe has not been has been discarded. Equally, the national planning and economic development function has made the Chapter 2 of our Constitution, which is the directive, fundamental objectives, and directive principle of state. What most people, lawyers, will say is non-justiciable, but it made it the function of this committee and this ministry. And the fundamental objective and directive principle of state in our Constitution are the levers that glue literally our federation together. So in appreciating that, I want the committee to study that aspect of the mandate, because even within the National Assembly National Assembly membership, it calls for drawing more attention to that. And then people can appreciate that maybe the National Planning and Economic Development Committee ought to be take its place as a place of pride as maybe the number one committee, because that is really a central task that is very, very important. And in doing so, also to support the ministry, because what we are called upon to do as ministry is to manage the national consensus, to be the brain box literally of the country. All other ministries are required to implement from that consensus. And so we believe that is a very fundamental objective. Last but not the least, Chairman, is to once more appreciate you and express that we appreciate the National Assembly, particularly the committee, and we are always available to interact, to answer any question, so that we will do better together. I express to you, and I'm repeating formally, our confidence that we will overcome this heavy lifting pace. Not long in the future, but shortly, within the year. And Nigeria will be more prosperous, more blessed. Our strategy of macroeconomic reforms, though may have some challenges, but we believe it's a proper strategy for our country, and we are confident in your support. We will start as soon as possible steps. We have conducted 2, I think, or 3 brainstorming sessions for the amendment of the National Development Plan, and we will brief you as soon as possible. Having said that, and on behalf of all of us here in the ministry, to once more thank all of you, but maybe more particularly on behalf of the women in this ministry, to say that the chairman of the Senate Committee, House Committee on Women, have not visited the women in this ministry. We will urge her to do so, and equally the deputy chairman FCT.
Landlord.
Maybe
Take a facility tour.
maybe well, I don't want to talk about my sister, but so we all welcome you, and we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.